chat. In case your mic is not working, just write in the chat what do you think machine learning is.
Okay, I'll just see the chats. Okay. If your mic is not working, I can like I've switched to chat. So like, what do you think from that slide? What is machine learning? Yep, people are typing. Several people are typing.
I think Gmeet should just extend their capacity.
Yep. Computer trying to mimic our way of thinking. Something more simpler, right? Like from the slide, I don't think making the machine learn from the data sets. Okay, what is a machine learning by reading? So the screen is blank, not visible. Okay, let me show the window. See, this is a slide which I was talking about, the first slide. This one. Let me read the answer. Making the computer predict things by learning from previous data. Man, see, like I think you guys already know machine learning. If that's why you are, I want new answers. Like, come on, give me like random answers. Just base this on the slide. What you understand? What is machine learning? I was presenting the inter. I'll do that. So, Sneha, can you do me a favor? As like I will be presenting as soon as someone writes, right? You can simply read out name of the person and also like what he has written, so that I can
Yep,
be on
yep,
the slides.
yep.
Okay,
Okay.
great. So, what all answers we are having, Snigdha?
Yeah,
Something new?
so electropy is where the machine learns through experience.
That is
And
again more
Bloom says
complex.
machine trying to learn from reading the book.
Correct. That is actually the correct answer, right? If you simply see the slide, whoever he is, he should get a prize. Whenever I come to Jadavpur next time, I'll definitely give you some cups or something like that, some goodies. So this is like machine learning from book, right? That is what is machine learning according to this slide. And some or the other way, this is correct, right? Be it any type of machine learning, always what we try to do is like we try to learn from the data. So that is like a machine able to learn it like or train itself from the data is called machine learning. So, like simply, right? Learning machine learning on its own. That is called machine learning. What do you think? Are machines complacent? What is complacency, by the way? All the GRE folks
Shivam,
out.
his slide is getting blank again and again.
What?
His slide is getting blank, like blank screen. I guess maybe you should stop sharing and again start sharing the whole screen.
Okay. Screen share. Screens.
Like whenever he's switching to Discord, the screen is
Yeah,
going
yeah,
blank.
yeah.
Is it visible now?
Hold on. Yeah. It's visible.
Okay.
Right.
So can someone tell me what is complacency? Like just type in chat. Snigdha will be our person who can simply moderate. What is complacency? Any answers, Snigdha?
Not yet.
Someone typing?
No.
Uh, hey man, so weak in English. No one knows what is complacency? Guys, come
Two
on.
people are typing.
Literature, Bengal.
I think first they are googling the word.
Electropy.
First they are taking some time to Google the word, then they're
This
typing.
is the bad thing about like this video lectures and all. Ah, okay, let
Yeah,
me.
so Acha, we have
Yep.
two answers. Electrooper says overconfidence, and Rajdeep says willing to perform a task.
Okay, can someone tell me an example? Like, let me go via that route. I
We
think,
have two more answers. Should I tell you?
yep, examples.
Thinking, not examples, they've just written the definition.
Oh, that I don't want to like someone said, right? Google will be there. Someone like more creative, like put complacency in a creative fashion. You can Google. Let's. Do you have any Google and try to put complacency in a creative fashion. What do you think complacency is? You can take example of any of your friends, any person whom you know, and like you can give, right? Or someone like famous in Jadavpur University, someone famous in your class, and you can tell like, oh, he is complacent. Be it in his relationship also, right? People can be complacent in his relationship. Usually boys are. How many?
Everyone is giving this example.
What?
Complacency cost Brazil the Copa.
What is that, bhai? This is like, okay, I have to decode it. How many of you think after getting into a relationship, boys become complacent? Can someone type yes or no or something like that? Anyone who thinks that, okay, after getting into relationship, boys get complacent? Anyone?
Majority of the audience is boys. The answer will be biased. Massively biased.
No. Okay, at least we'll have some girls, right?
Maybe.
Who is saying, like, what is the answers we are getting, Snigdha, for this question?
Electroper says the boys get into a relationship easily.
No, like, okay, and are they complacent? So,
No, no. Sigma said maybe. Achak said with
maybe.
our relationship example, I understood the definition. No girls are typing.
Oh. See, generally it happens, right? What happens is like after, whenever, like when a boy doesn't know the girl, like they are new, like so they roam around that girl, right? So much. Like generally in Hindi movies, that's what I have seen. That okay, they'll roam around. Once they get into a relationship, they are having that girl, then it will become like start like previously it was like Babu Shona and all, and after that it becomes like, oh wow, like I don't care, I'm going to with my friends, I'm playing this and I'm playing that. That happens, right? So that is what is complacency. I can explain, right? In the most simplest terms. So what happens is like why you get into a relationship. Basically, you want for a longer like not generally I'm speaking, right? Don't think me that okay all of them, but generally like okay you want to get into a relationship and continue that relationship and end it with a marriage. That's the true love. That's what it is, right? Like if you say now but what happens in between, only you become complacent and like I have get into relationship, leave it now. So that feeling is called complacency. When you're satisfied by a sub goal instead of like achieving a major goal, that is what is complacency. Now can you tell me, are machines complacent? Don't tell me that okay boy machine is complacent and girl machine is not complacent, because are machines complacent? Someone will type Alexa is not complacent, but Bob is.
No, we are getting no as answers.
Machines are not complacent, huh? Why do you think like machines are not complacent? Like why? Can you just put a reason? Any reasons we got?
That depends on the business of the data set. And someone says no unless we program it too.
What?
So biasness. That depends on the biasness of the data set.
Biasness of the data. Hey man, so complex answers, Nigda. When you guys were giving me answers, like for the first time, it was so simple. I have
These
to use
people
so much
don't really
brain.
seem like the first timers.
Oh, they are not first timers, huh?
They do everything we tell them to, don't get satisfied midway.
Hmm.
You have no self consciousness.
What? Come again?
No
One has
self
written
consciousness.
Ah. So majority answer is no, right?
Everyone is no.
Oh, everyone is no. Correct. Machines like, but this is something which depends actually. It depends. It's very, you cannot generalize this fact that machines are complacent or not. But generally, yes, like machines aren't complacent. Why they aren't complacent? Because the amount of learning you give, they will keep on learning. They are not like that. Okay, I get a girl and I then okay, I'm satisfied. I don't want to marry and all that doesn't happen with them. So it's like okay, if I have got a task right, like first time whatever I thought, and if I'm getting more and more data, they try to learn more and more. They don't stop achieving a sub goal. Like that standard example which I gave, right? someone wanted to crack UPSC, but he cracked SSC, and he's like, I'm having a government job. I'll get a good girl. That's it. Like my life is set. But what happened to UPSC after that? No one knows. So that is what. But machines are not like that. Machines like, okay, I'm getting more data. Let me learn. Let me learn. Let me learn. Let me learn. But that's actually like tends to lot of like the concept of overfitting, underfitting in machine learning, which you will come across. So that is what happens when you are overtraining the data. Like you are giving more and more data. So it depends on how much we give the data. That is also important. Like how much should we stop? But definitely machines are not complacent, aren't complacent. Okay. So so that is a risk in life, right? How much you should be complacent in some angle, because suppose because you're not complacent, you try to achieve a major goal, and because of that the sub goal which you achieved, right, was lost, and you're not at last you were not able to even achieve the major goal. So that is also, so you need to have that. So complacency isn't bad term, is it negative term? It's not a negative term, according to me. So these discussions are highly philosophical, but machine learning is all over philosophy. Okay. So basically, this is a relationship which you see, right? Machine learning and mathematics, they hold very tight relationship. So if you can see different things, type of headaches, migraine, hypertension, stress, math behind deep learning, the math behind deep learning, and how Keras and different packages they imported. Okay, so this like it's very important to know maths, like have a good command on statistics and stuff like that to be able to debug machine learning algorithm. If you simply want to write an algorithm, you can say, but how you know that? Okay, how I can increase the accuracy, decrease the accuracy, those type of things, right? The hyperparameter tuning comes only when you know the mathematics behind the algorithms. Okay, so what is machine learning? According to Sir Arthur Samuel, right? The ability of computers to learn without being explicitly programmed. This is what is machine learning. By the way, like programming, right? If you can see, these are three blocks in programming. You have an input, you have a program, and based on that program, you get an output. Can you tell me, like, what can be the three blocks, like in order? What will be the three blocks for like for machine learning? And that will be the difference between machine learning and traditional programming. Anyone who can say that? Anyone?
Yeah, a lot of people are typing.
Great. Let's wait.
Trial and error correction.
Only based on these three uh, terms: input, program, and output. How you define machine learning? So
Training, testing, predicting.
no. Simple programming will be like input will be there first. The first box will be input, then it will be program, then it will be output. How will be the boxes be placed in machine learning?
Output, program, input. We have three answers. Output, program, input.
Output, program, input. Really? Just think once more. Like in machine learning, what do you give? What you try to do? What is like anyone? More answers, Snika?
Uh,
More answers are coming.
Input, output to program, then program, input, output,
Input output to
data.
program, right? That is correct. If you see, right, you have an input block, you have an output block, and you try to create a program out of the input and output. So your end product in machine learning is your program, your model. Now, whenever a new data comes, you can simply call the model and get the results output. But what is an end product in machine learning is the model, and that model is created by machine itself, right? Based on the patterns it sees in input and output, it tries to find a pattern like, okay, what input led to this output? And that is something which it does on its own, right? That's why it's everywhere automation, and wherever automation comes, ML is always like there these days. I hope this is clear. Anyone, any questions still here? Like anyone who wants to repeat, like wants me to repeat, uh, you can type in chat. Like Sneha, anyone typing?
Not yet.
Okay, great man. I think then it's good. So this is like simple categories how we categorize machine learning. Can you tell me what's the difference here? Like seeing the slide. Don't give me like Faru answers. I don't like it. Give me something like stupid answers. I'll accept it with full lunch, and I'll even treat you like arsal and biryani when I come there. So definitely like give me some answers. Snigdha, just note down people who are giving me noob answers. Like I really want to meet them
Okay.
whenever I come next time.
Buffering.
What is like difference? Supervised and unsupervised in here. Just seeing the diagram, tell me an answer.
Looks like constant, but these are not constant. So
What?
divisibility for especially it can be quantitative shape or it can be convex shape. So we first put the values of date. The date in this region capital E date value right. So one in first the values of date we have the limit for the for limit for x and y. So how to put the limit for x and y? One
Okay, like okay, guys. I wasn't here like able to hear completely, but I got what you're saying. You're saying that okay, in there'll be like supervised will be x and y, and unsupervised will not be x and y, right? That's what you said. You can type in chat like if that is the correct understanding of what you were trying to say. But like I want no answers. Like this is like
Yeah,
more
we
towards
have answers like self-learning and coaching, learning from
self-learning and
instructor, self-learning and coaching.
who gave this answer?
Sorin,
Great. And more?
going to tuition, studying at home by yourself,
Going to
like similar
tuition,
kind of
studying.
answer. Learning
Yep,
from an
yep, yep.
instructor, learning by reading yourself.
Great. So something like self-learning and coaching. Perfect example, man. Like, see, when you go in coaching, what you do, you have someone to tell you that, okay, this is the right answer, this is the wrong answer. When you do self-learning, what you do is like you decide yourself, like, okay, what is right, what is wrong. You simply have set of books, you have simply have set of things. You don't know what, like, you keep on reading and you try to, based on patterns or based on findings, you say that, okay, this is right, this is wrong. So this self-learning concept, right? Someone was saying that X and Y, that is what it is. Like in supervised learning, you have a label which we say Y. So suppose it can be like classify a person as a girl or a boy based on its features. So you can do that, right? So you and like you'll have a set of training data where you'll have set of features, right? Long hair, brown eyes. Okay, sorry, boys can also have brown eyes, right? Long hair and then mustache, some features, and then you'll say that okay, having mustache, not having mustache, these set of things will be, and then you'll say that okay, long hair is there, mustache is not there, and something more, right? Then you say that okay, she's a girl, and else short hair, mustache is there, beards are there, then you say it's a boy. So like you give this information to machine and then machine learns on its own and creates a model that okay, now whenever new data comes, it tries to see okay, whatever things tick is there, and it tries to compare that okay, who is the nearest person who is similar to that, and then it assigns a class to it automatically that it's a girl or a boy. So this is more towards a classification problem. In unsupervised machine learning, it's more towards a clustering problem where you simply don't know, like you have set of features, you don't have the labels, right? He's a boy or a girl. But what you can simply do is like you can have when the machine learns, it tries to divide it into two clusters, but it won't label that okay, which one is boy, which one is girl, because that information we have not provided. But what it can definitely do is like have two clusters, create two clusters of it based on the feature set. Getting the point? Any questions, any doubts here? Snigdha, anyone typing?
No doubt, but I like this answer. In supervised, failing in something and learning. Unsupervised, seeing friend fail and learning from them.
Oh man, like great, good creativity. Who is that?
SD69.
Oh, who? Okay, this is like whatever name. Like, can you type your name?
Yeah, SD69.
What is her name? Great, good answer. Really right. Correct. In supervised learning, you actually see your friends fail and you learn. In unsupervised learning, you fail and you try to learn. Let me know when the name is there. But that is correct. Okay. So reinforcement learning is there where it's like a reward based system basically, where you actually get
There is one doubt. Sir,
uh,
then why unsupervised learning is used like it may be error type?
no. It tries to fix the error within the system. Like it. So what it does, like let me give you an example. You have 5 points to start with, right? So first you'll create a cluster, five clusters. Now then you realize, oh hey, these two are similar, and let's cluster it once. So it fails that okay, it should not be five, it should be four cluster only. Then you go on doing this, and at last you'll end up having two clusters or three clusters. So that's why that is the essence of unsupervised learning. It doesn't rely on others' inputs to have those clusters. So it is learning continuously based on the algorithm. Like, okay, you keep on like clustering it, will tell, okay, these can be similar, this can be clubbed together, this can be clubbed together. And it tries to at last bring a set of two clusters where like, or two, three clusters or n clusters based on the data. Got the answer? In supervised, it's more like, okay, you already tell them what is right and wrong. Here, they don't know what is right and wrong. They try to figure out themselves that, hey, this is right, this is wrong. And what is right, what is wrong means initially you can have five different clusters, right? Everyone is unique in itself. But eventually we can cluster them more towards each other, and they say that, okay, at last we can have two clusters, three clusters, and clusters for this particular data. So it's not that why unsupervised is good. Both of them have a different. So see, in supervised learning algorithm, there's a lot of manual effort which goes in creating the training data. In unsupervised, you don't have to create a training data. So if you are capable enough, you have manpower, like and also your the business knowledge or domain knowledge, you can do supervised learning and go ahead and annotate the data. But in unsupervised, you don't have to do these things. You can simply run an algorithm and it will tell you, okay, these are four, five things which this document is talking about. These are four, five clusters which is coming out of this document. That is the essence. Is it clear?
Yeah, two types, yes.
Okay. So reinforcement is basically like a dog, right? How you train a dog. Simply that okay, if he does something good, you give him a treat. If he doesn't listen to you, or if he does something wrong, you simply slap or kick uh, her or him, right? Like, I have a her, so like for her. So definitely. So that is how reinforcement works, right? It's a reward based learning. So if the model does something, you say that, hey, you have done a great job and all. You give a positive reward. If the model does something wrong, you send a feedback, hey, this is not right. You shouldn't do like this. So that's how reinforcement works. Now let me go to the machine learning life cycle quickly. So any machine learning algorithm, any machine learning pipeline will be of these four things, right? Problem statement, feature engineering, model accuracy. These are four things which a machine learning life cycle comprise of. So like let me just see. So this is a problem statement, right? You can see wine or beer. Can someone tell me like what's the difference between these two? Like how you will try to classify these two? What are the features p- with the help of which you can classify it's a wine or a beer? Anyone?
Zodiac says color,
Color. Uh-huh.
alcohol percentage,
Uh-huh.
more froth, less froth, taste.
Array. See
The
all
elements
like
of the liquid.
what ingredients of the liquid, huh? I think both
Yeah,
of them like can be made of same ingredient.
the
Can't
ingredient
be.
and its percentage
Mm,
and the amount of the ingredients.
correct. Which one do you like? Like which type of ingredient you like?
I have no idea about that.
You haven't tried yet. Array.
Yeah, no, I haven't tried.
You are a day scholar. In hostel, like usually that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I am in only in first year. I
Oh,
am
you have just joined.
I have
Mm.
yeah, our college hasn't start in offline mode.
Okay, so
From the
you're
first
waiting
time
for that.
we are doing in online.
Got it. I can feel for you, bro. Don't worry. No worries. Like at least your seniors will take care that you learn the rest. Great. Ingredients. Uh-huh. Along with the alcohol percentage. Good, good. Anyone else?
Presence of malt, container, price.
Uh-huh. See, so because you guys have good domain expertise on this area, right? You have been seeing it, or you have been drinking it, or you have been using it, right? Whatever can be, but you have good understanding. That is why you are able to highlight the features, what can differentiate them. But all of these might not be good features. So that there comes a concept of weak feature and like strong features, and also like something like feature engineering, right? So if you see, right, what you said, alcohol percentage is a very good feature, but like something like color might like beer can look like wine, wine can look like beer also. It's possible. Like it's there's no, but definitely like in some cases where the alcohol percentage is very similar, right, close to 7 or 5, you say that okay, it can be a wine or a beer. So like there, the color can play an important role. So though both the features are important, but something like alcohol content is a very strong features compared to color. So there comes the like if you see like feature engineering, what you need to do, like I'll come to this point. But like before that, like what is one of feature engineering? You should have the data set randomized, an equal number of samples for both the classes, wine and beer. If you're not having, it will get biased. And then splitting the data set into testing and training, 75% and 25%, or 70 or 30 or 80 or 20, something like that. And then you do the next step. But this is like some things which you should definitely do. 101, I said, right? Now let's go to my point where I was saying that okay, so feature engineering, right? What is feature engineering? So engineering out new features from the existing feature. So if I take like something like 80% of alcohol content and 20% of color and create a new feature out of it, which represents both. I've engineered out features, right? I've used some statistics, some maths, basic mathematics to bring out new features. And if you see, right, majority of PCA, LDA, all these algorithms which is there in the market, which does this like principal component analysis, and then the discriminant analysis, all of them, what they try to do is like they try to have the planes which are like more contributing towards the final classification task, or they're trying to identify important features, so that is they are very good feature selectors. So that is why we use them so extensively. So feature engineering means that okay, we need to engineer out new features. It can be as simple as having a weighted mean, or it can be as difficult as having a complex mathematical matrix manipulation. So now if you see, I have taken out features, and then I have put it into a space. So the red ones are wine, or the blue ones are beers, if you can see, right? And then I'm trying based on my training data, I'm trying to have a plane which can uh, distinguish both red and blue. So if you see, this is a planar, like what you can say, linear model. Why I say linear, it's like simple plane. But there are models which can have like a circular structure or those type of things. Like instead of a linear or non-linear model is also there. So, like this is what the model tries to do. It tries to find a plane or some structure which can differentiate these wine and beer. And if you see, there is one red which you can see within the blue gang, and one blue within the red gang. These are outliers. This is where your accuracy. So this will be like false positive or false negative, right? So this is where it will come. So this is like the model. So generally SVM does it in this way. This is like a linear SVM, what is being shown here. Now if you see, right, there's 60 nanometer of color and 12% alcohol. What will be, a wine or beer? What do you think? Guys, will it be a wine or a beer? This is the sample data if you have. Wavelength is 599. I'll go beer, wine, beer. This is like I've given a training data. Now I'm having a test data where I see that okay, 660 nanometer and 12% alcohol. What do you think? What it is?
People are saying wine.
Correct. Why? Because of the alcohol content, right? And like if you see even the star, new star which is coming, it's near to the wine blocks and not. So how did we find out this? Like how did you do it? Is basically what you try to do is like you saw the alcohol content, you saw the color, and then you're comparing. Hey, what is the nearest neighbor to it, right? Simply in so this algorithm itself is called k nearest neighbor. This is like the most basic things, and trust me, like it works good in some cases. Like for some of the problem statement, this can also work. This works better than SVM in some cases. I have tried that experiment. So that happens. So it's not that okay, it's basic, so it's not usable. It is usable. Depending on the use case, you can use it to a good extent. So what you try to do is like this is the simple algorithm, right? You try to compute distance and then sort and see that okay, whatever is having the minimum distance, and then you see that okay, what are the points which are there. So if suppose out of you have three nearest neighbor, you check for three nearest neighbor, two is wine and one is red, then also you say that okay, it is wine because the nearest neighbors are wine. So that is why it's called k nearest neighbors. And this is how you measure the accuracy. This is called the confusion matrix, right? So actual yes and predicted yes. What is good or what is bad? You say. What do you think? Like, why the accuracy? How you calculate this accuracy from this matrix? Anyone who can tell me? Snigdha, anyone typing?
No one is typing. So one person is typing.
So if you see the diagonal elements, right? They are the good ones. The machine predicted yes, and actually they were yes, they were true. So yes, that is a good thing. The machine predicted no, but actually they were a good. That was yes. That is not a good thing. Actually, that was no, but the machine is predicting yes, yes, it's there. So that is also not a good thing. But actually, the actually it was no, and machine also predicted it's a no. That also it's a good thing. So it's like 50 plus 60 by 50 plus 60 plus 10 plus 10. So that is your accuracy. So that is how. So there's a sense of false positives and false negatives, true positives, true negative, and that is how precision, recall, and all comes into picture. And that are also very important metrics. Why? Because somewhere you can go for high precision, low recall. Somewhere you can go for high recall, low precision, and all. So read about this. This is your homework. Next time, whenever the call happens, I'll definitely ask you about precision and recall. This is the overfitting and underfitting. This is what I was talking initially. That if you go give more and more training data, what it tries to do is like it tries to generalize. But if you do a lot of training, right, it tries to not generalize but specify. If you see, right, and whenever we get like a new point, it will not be able to do because the model is very very specific. And this is underfitting where you have less of training, right? So what is like it will be a simple line. It won't be able to distinguish. Now this is something which is a good thing. This is like a what you can say a good balance, and this is a good model. So there's always a trade-off that how much you should train or how much so if you train a lot it tends to overfit. If you train less it tends to underfit. So you can understand these things when you do in real, right? You'll see that these things start popping up.
Sigma wants you to explain overfitting and underfitting again.
Okay. So overfitting means that okay, whenever you do lot of training, right? The machine instead of learning the pattern, it learns actual data. And because of that, whenever a new test data comes, it's not able to generalize, right? Because it has learned actual data. And you see here, like you don't have a model like a very Hello, am I audible? Hey,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Audible.
okay, okay. I think I have to share again, or like let me share. Is my screen visible? Is it visible, guys?
It's loading, I guess.
Yes,
Yes,
Okay.
basically.
So I was saying, right, overfitting means you have like specified to so much. Like whenever a new test data comes, you are not able to. Now underfitting means that you have not trained itself, like, and because of that, whenever new data comes again, you will not be able to classify correctly. But good balance means you have like a good specialization and good like generalization. You are somewhere in between. So like, see, your model should be generic across the class, but specific within the class. That is what I'll say. Okay. Like it should be generic enough to be able to detect, like if you are doing a classification problem, right? This is an example of a regression problem which you see here, where there are points and you're trying to, whenever a new point comes, you try to predict the y value for it based on whatever it has seen. But in classification problem also, it will like similar type of things happen. Okay, hope the question is solved, right? The doubt is clear. Snigdha?
Yeah, Snigdha is facing some connection issues. So yeah, the guy said yes, solved.
Okay. So now if you see, right, what's next for a machine learning engineer? So if, like machine, there's a difference between data scientist and machine learning engineer. Machine learning engineer are the ones who actually take your product end to end. Data scientists are one who are only involved in the algorithm side of it. Okay. So like, and like a machine learning engineer, you should have basic knowledge of ML algorithms, machine learning tools, data set description and all, and programming language, and also basic knowledge of probability statistics and linear algebra. At least these are some key aspects where you will be required, like for machine learning engineer. Any questions? Rishu, is there any question coming up?
No, sure, no questions.
No questions,
No.
right? Okay, guys. So this is what like a quote on complacency. Success beats complacency. Complacency beats failure. Only the paranoid survives. So like I said initially, right? So make sure that like you're not complacent or you're like you are complacent. Both are required, right? Based on the situation. Great, man. I think that is it from my side. And then Snigdha and Rishu will go over the practical aspect of it. Uh,
Sure. Yeah. So am I audible now? Somebody type.
yep,
Okay.
yep, Rishu, you are good. Uh,
Yes, you're
thanks.
audible. Yes.
So in supervised and unsupervised learning, I'll be covering the unsupervised one, and Snigdha would be covering the supervised one. So yep, let me share my notebook.
Hey team, like just one sec. Like team,
Yeah,
I'll need to drop off because of I have some personal commitments. But definitely, like let's connect tomorrow and like discuss more on the applications, the theoretical concepts. And tomorrow I'll be there for the entire duration. Hope that's fine, right?
sure, sir.
Thanks.
Sure, sir.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So does anyone want to know, or does anyone want to answer what is unsupervised learning, or what do you mean by unsupervised learning? Just a short definition. We have answers earlier. If you can speak, you can also unmute and direct speak. Yeah, learning through trial and error. Yeah, roughly we can say a machine learning itself. Okay. So I have contacted Avirup and found out that most of the people are beginners to this machine learning thing. So I'll be starting from the basic. So unsupervised learning is a crucial part of a machine learning thing, and in most of the cases it gets a bit ignored because we all know about regression and classification of in supervised learning, but unsupervised gets a little bit unexplored. So we'll be exploring that thing. So the main difference between unsupervised and supervised learning is in unsupervised you don't get accuracy, and that is a problem, and that is also a scope. That is a problem because you don't estimate how good the results are, and that is also its benefit. Like there is a vast scope in unsupervised learning. Like if I want to evaluate an essay on cow, we can't properly assign the marks out of 100. It's like literature. You can't, it's not a simple answer kind of thing. We don't have proper yes or no. In classification, you have the confusion matrix. In regression, you have accuracy, recall, sensitivity, specificity, and many other parameters. But in unsupervised learning, we don't have things like that. So clustering, I would be focusing on clustering in unsupervised learning because I have studied about this in a bit detail. And Shobhi Jyoti said in supervised learning, if computer gets a thing wrong, how does it know how to improve on it? Yeah, that is on the correction part. So if the supervised learning is, how does it actually, if it wrongly assigns the label, if it is a classification problem, then the yes becomes the no, or the no becomes the yes. That is the error. Then we can help this by feature engineering, okay, by increasing or decreasing the size of our training data, by cleaning our training data. Because in machine learning, there is a saying garbage in, garbage out, and that is accurately, very accurately saying. If your training data is clean, then the results would be excellent. And who's not okay. So, Avirup, can you please share the notebook that I have provided, or I can send the link here?
So you can share the link here in
Okay.
the ML announcements, that channel you can share the link. Did I give you the drive link? I think it was.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm also pasting the link in the chats. You can just click on it and access it. Just give me a yes after everyone access the notebook. Responses. Can you access? Okay, fine. So I'll be also sharing my screen so that we can do it side by side. Cool. Is it visible?
Yes, Rishi.
Okay. So unsupervised learning, what is unsupervised learning? It is basically a type of algorithm that learns patterns from untagged data. We don't have taggings here. We don't have labeled data here. The input data is can be anything, a cluster, a graph, a paragraph, or anything. But that is not unlabeled in this case, and that is why it is known as unsupervised. And my favorite quote about this is, if intelligence is a cake and the bulk of the cake is unsupervised learning, and the icing on the cake is supervised, and the cherry on the top of the cake is reinforcement learning. So this is a famous quote by Facebook AI chief Jan LeCun, and it clearly states that the whole material, the whole bread of the cake is like unsupervised learning. So there is a, it is a bit ignored. Nobody cares about the bread, but it comprises most of the component of the cake. So we can understand its importance by this saying. And we can now focus on clustering. So just give me answers. What do we understand by clustering in simple words, like a real life example? If you want to speak, just unmute and you can speak. I don't know, Avirup, if that is possible. Can the participants speak?
I think they have the permission for push to talk. Like directly voice activity is disabled. I think they have to push to talk.
Scattered group very closely packed grouping, yeah, grouping. Formation of friend circle in some manner. So yeah, Anushka, you said the very accurate answer, grouping. Basically, when things are scattered, we need to organize them, and we need the kind of parameters for that organization or that kind of grouping. If in a class, in a like in the ninth class of our school life, if I said that group the students, then the first question that you will ask, in how many groups? That is, in how many clusters? Groups are the same as clusters. Organics forming groups of similar items. Exactly. So that thing, that parameters is the number of clusters, and we have to decide first. And like if we say in a group of two, what do you think is the most best method to classify a bunch of students, say, a bunch of school students in a group of two? What should be a parameter? Anyone can write in the chat. Interest, yeah, but there is a flaw in that. We can't just classify or group them into two interests. There should be only two groups. Boys and girls. Shambhu, exactly. Male, female. Sigma male also. The male, female is a very accurate parameter, and we can easily group them. We don't need any kind of session. We can just see them and ask them and just group them. And also, there should be a less outliner or kind of thing that belongs to the both clusters. So that is a very sharp parameter to cluster them. If I say that the number of clusters should be 4, we can use the number of or the color of houses for that. The house, the blue house, the red house, we kind of had those in our school. So that is also good parameter. So first we have to decide how many clusters. And you guys have notebook with you, and we can now proceed on the implementation part first. And for the implementation in this part, we have used hierarchical agglomerative clustering. The first two heavy words are nothing, I will explain them, but it is a type of clustering. So you can just start running the cells one by one. Just run the first cell, just connect your notebook and start running. Okay. Sneha, please let me know if they face any problem.
Yeah,
Please reply in the chat. Yeah. So I'm running the second cell. Yeah. So what I have done here, this is the first cell, and I have imported all the necessary libraries. What are the libraries we have used from the sklearn cluster, from the sklearn cluster agglomerative clustering, and from this section library hierarchy and a dendrogram. I'll explain it in the later section. We have used pandas, numpy, and matplotlib for plotting. Pandas for dataset handling, numpy for mathematical operations. And we have created our very own data. Like this is a kind of random thing. You can just experiment putting 1 4 by 5 3 6 9 4 5 or any. These are just coordinates. I have chosen 8 coordinates and just plotted it into a graph. Okay. So in this graph, how many clusters, obvious clusters can you see? Give me answers, please. In that figure, that graph. If I say that group them, then what would be your answer? How many groups would you likely to form? Shambhu said 4. 4. Cool. So the majority says 4. Okay. So we can easily see that the number of obvious clusters is 4. And we can do that by just using this function. This class clustering is equal to agglomerative clustering that we have imported in our first cell, this thing. And we can just put the parameters, the number of clusters as 4, and then fit our data into it. And after that, we can find the labels that the clusters have been assigned to. So after running this, we can find 2 2 3 3 0 0 1 1. These numbers are the clusters number. First 2 elements belong to cluster 2. Okay. So like these 2 elements belong to cluster 2. These 2 belongs to 3, 0 cluster and 1 cluster. These are just cluster numbers or cluster labels. So clustering the data in 4 clusters looks something like this. But what if I say that cluster them into 2 groups? Then how will it look? It will look something like this. I guess everyone can imagine how would you group them into 2 groups. So this one is on the top right section. So this is a bit far from this. And we can group it as alone, and these 6 in a single group. So the question arises, how do we know what is the obvious number of clusters? Here you all have said 4 just by looking it, because the data points are very less. It is 8. But this task becomes harder and harder when the number of points are increasing. Like if the data points are 100,000 or in millions. So then this task cannot be done by just viewing. Also, here we have used the coordinates. The dimension of every point is 2. But as we know, the dimension can be higher than 2. Obviously, it can be higher than 2. It can start from 1 and then it can go from 20, 30 dimensions. And then we cannot plot it into a 2D graph. Maximum, we can imagine it into a 3D plot. We can't imagine 4D things, right? So this task becomes less efficient just by saying it. Then we need a solution to this. How to determine the suitable number of clusters? We can use a dendrogram to do this. What is a dendrogram? Dendrogram is basically a tree structure that shows the hierarchical clustering. Like we can see this group, okay? The one big circle is just one group which contains all the elements in it. And then we have other small group and smaller group, and this is containing 2, and this is containing 2, and the A group is containing 3. Sorry, not A group. This is the point. This smaller circle have 4 points, and the image at the beside is the dendrogram. So here we can see the point E and F. They can be clustered in a single cluster here. At this, the horizontal lines show that they are clustered in a same group. Okay, so there is one group formation here, second group formation here, third here, fourth here. So EF, where are the point EF? EF are here, and they are clustered together in a same group because they are very close to each other. So okay, here they are clustered. Here B and C are clustered. Okay, here I and H, and here J and K. And what is the vertical distance? So vertical distance shows how similar or how different the points are, or how easy or how difficult it is to cluster them. We can understand the parts of dendrogram, the language or the terms associated with it. So these lines are called clades, and these vertical lines are called leaves. Simple. And we can plot a dendrogram for any clustering by using this code section. I request you to please run it. Okay. So we have first obtained the linkage by used hierarchy.linkage. I have imported hierarchy earlier in the first section. And we have provided two parameters. The data one is nothing. Data one is this 2D array. We have provided the data one in this, and we have provided a method. Method is a parameter. I'll let you know more about it in the advanced section. And we have then plotted the figure. We have provided the title, and we have used this to obtain a dendrogram. The predefined library, hierarchy.dendrogram, and the parameter that it takes is the linkage that we have obtained in the second line. And this is the dendrogram for our this thing, this. So here you can estimate what is the obvious number of clusters. How to understand a dendrogram? The basics of the dendrogram goes like this. The clades that are closer to the same height are similar to each other. Clades with different heights are dissimilar. The greater the distance in height, the more similarity. No, sorry, the more dissimilarity. So what is the most longest vertical line with no cluster making? That is this section. Okay. And what is the second longest? This. And what is the third and the least? This. So in this section, the most stable cluster is found. This section, the second most, and the least stable cluster is found in this. And the y-axis shows the distances between the data points. So here 0 and 1 points, they have clustered together here. And you guys have told me that 4 is the most obvious number of cluster making for grouping them. So here you can say there are 4 vertical lines in this region. 1, 2, 3, 4. In each of the 4, there are 2 elements. See, the same I have done. In each of the group, there are 2 elements. And then on going further, these 2 groups merge into one. This one group merge into in this one, and this is the most stable region. Okay, so this is a cluster containing 6 elements, and this is a cluster containing 2 elements, which shows us this picture. This one. This is a cluster containing 6 elements, and this is a cluster containing 2 elements. That is 2 clusters. So the answer is like if you want to know what is the most suitable or most stable number of clusters in this proper example is 2. 4 is the second most stable. You can say obviously like by looking there are 4 suitable clusters, but also these 3 clusters are in nearby, and this is a bit far away in the corner. So this orientation is the most stable one. This is the second most stable one. So go through this dendrogram. You can Google more about it to understand it in a better way. It is very difficult for me to understand you, make you understand the whole basics of the clustering in just one session. But we can proceed on the implementation part since it is a hands-on session. So first you have to access this data set. We are willing to implement this on a real data set. We have earlier we have done this on our own data set, but here we will apply it on a real life data set. So what is our data set? I would request you to please visit this link and then download it from here. Just click on it and it will show you a CSV. Just download it. So the input dataset consists in data of consumers from a departmental store, and our aim of the problem is to segment the clients of a wholesale distributor based on their annual spending on diverse product categories like milk, grocery, region, etc. So have everyone downloaded this CSV? It won't take much longer. Like you can text yes or still in downloading. Okay, yes, yeah. So just upload it in the collab. Just search where is uh yeah, here it is. Just upload it. Click on here. Here you can upload it and then start running the cells. First, we have to import the dataset. We have used pandas. We have imported pandas as PD, and we have used the function read CSV, provided the parameter the name or path of the file CSV file, and then we have printed the head. It shows a date of 5 or 10. You can set that parameter. If I will put 10, then it would show the first 10 instances. So this is our data set. These are the various columns: channel, region, fresh, milk, grocery, frozen, detergent, paper, and what is this? Delicacy. So on these parameters, we have to we have to cluster it in a suitable number of clusters. So first we have to scale the data, scale and normalize the data, since you can see that there is a very vast difference in the magnitude of data. This is 12,000 and this is 3. So it may create a problem in the further steps. We have used the sklearn pre-processing library for this. So yeah, here it is converted between 0 to 1 and now it looks good. Now we will plot the dendrogram of this data. This would take a bit, like 10 to 20 seconds, depending upon your internet connection, because the data set is a bit big. Yeah, this is a messy dendrogram. And now you guys have to estimate a suitable number of clusters after viewing this. What do you think? What is the most suitable number of clusters? In short, I am asking what is the longest vertical line without any cluster making, like this section, or this section, because here it have cluster. Answers, intuitions. Third one. The third blue one. Okay, third one, which? This one? All are blue. Okay, I'm not asking this length. Say, here a new cluster is made, so this length won't count. I'm comparing this length, just this length. 10. 10, 10. I don't see a 10. This is 1.0 if this is what you're talking about. Okay, never mind. So we can choose number of clusters from here. Here, the number of clusters are 2. Here, the number of clusters are 3. And how I am knowing that? Just count the number of verticals lying in that region. 1, 2, and 3. Third one is this. In this region, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So in this example manner, I have taken 2 as a number of cluster. So this time we will implement the agglomerative clustering by provided it the number of clusters. We have put the number of clusters 2. You can also put it 3 or 4 or 10, 20, whatever you like. Affinity as Euclidean, and linkage as word, we can understand it in the further section and just fit it into our scale data. At, yeah, we got the labels 1 and 0 since there are only two groups. It is either group 1 or 2. Then we can plot it to get a better picture. See, this is the clustered thing. This region belongs to group 1. This region belongs to group 0 or vice versa. The problem here is the parameters were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But as you know, we can plot only 2D graphs. So we have chosen only two parameters, milk and grocery. And then we can see that there is a far rough line like, okay, this is a one cluster and this is a second one cluster. But the crux is that there is not an accurate answer for what is the suitable number of cluster. It is up to you. You can choose cluster the whole group of students into a single group. Like if I say group the class in one group, then you will say that the year of their passing examination. Okay, all belongs to the ninth class, so all are in the same group. If two, then the gender, male, female, boy, girl. If four, then the house colors. If three, there is, I can't think of any parameter. If you have a parameter like a good one, you can write in the chats. So things like that. I don't think we have that much enough time, but this is the advanced section, a bit advanced. We can understand the parameter that it takes by visiting this link. And I'm not going to talk about it because it will take much of your time. And we can plot the, see, I have put the method as here. Okay, yeah, method here as average. What does it mean? It means that, see, you can see here what mi- single. Single means that the distance, if we are comparing the distance in a cluster, see here we have formed a single cluster of two, yeah, of two elements, then what would be the whole average centroid of this cluster? We can use the centroid, that is the mean of these 2 points. We can take one of these points. We can take just the sum of this point. We can take the square root of this thing. So these can be done by this. We can take this minimum, maximum. We can take the average. We can take the weighted average. We can take the mod and what is the centroid, and we can take this formula that is word variance minimization algorithm. So it get a bit messy when it comes to parameter selection. And the point is here, yeah, the dendrogram changes by changing the method. I have plotted a four method dendrogram by difference: single, complete, average, weighted. And you can see a bit different dendrogram. See here, two tall lines, two tall, shorter line, and here one tall, one small. So yeah, it changes. Roughly it is same, but it changes. The second one is metric. Metric is a parameter, and here I provided Euclidean. Euclidean distance is like if you want to compare the similarity or the distance between any of these 2 points, what could you do? You can do many things like just in the distance between this. So by coordinate geometry, it would be under root this point coordinate x coordinate minus this point's x coordinate is square plus that formula you all know, I guess. So that thing is called Euclidean. So here I have put Euclidean means that the distance when you are computing the difference between 2 points, you will use this. Okay. And if you want to dig a bit more deeper on this clustering, and I guess in our next session, if I got the time, I would try to cover this graph clustering thing. We would discuss the graph clustering by various methods. You can visit this repository. I have made it, and it is provided in the GitHub. So you can do this in your free time. You can just go to this repository. I have used three methods: the agglomerative clustering, the graph stage, and the node to way. It can be a bit more complex if you are just a beginner, but you can just read the README file and try to understand what is going on here. Otherwise, I will try to visit this in our next session. So I guess this is it. Please shoot any questions if you have. I'll try to sort it. Any question, guys? Any related to clustering, hierarchical clustering, or any? It don't need to be anything specific or technical. Just if you want any study material or that kind of thing, you can ask it. One person is typing. All the other participants, if you also do have questions, make it an interactive session. You are free to ask me. I'm just one of your seniors, so don't feel awkward asking. Another, where do I need to start with unsupervised learning like the online materials? See, for the basic thing, you can just Google it. The best solution is whatever you are not understanding. Like if you don't understand what is a dendrogram, I have summed it in 10 to 15 minutes, but it is not possible for you to grasp the whole concept in this short time. So you can just Google it, read the articles. The best places are Geeks for Geeks and towards data science and Medium articles. But the rest are also good. Like what is dendrogram? Medium. So just go through this 3 minute read and you would grasp something new. So in this data science or in any developer domain, Google is the solution to most of the problems. Yeah, sure, Aviru, please. Stability of clusters. Yeah, stability of cluster is basically how difficult it is you to cluster the group. Like I have said, na, in a classroom, if I would say you to cluster three groups or classify all the student into three groups, then what would you choose as a parameter to decide in which group the student gets? How hard it is for you to think about that. That is the stability. If it is easy for you, like it is obvious, then it is a very stable one. There are no contradictions or intersections between two groups. Those are sharp, and those are having sharp boundaries. And if the clusters are intersecting, there is much of overlapping between clusters. It is not obvious to find the difference. Then it is very less stable. What are some good online sources for learning ML? Geeks for Geeks, Medium towards data science, analytics Vidya. I'll write it in the chat when Sandra would be having her session. And do I need a GPU to run these codes offline on your device? No, you can obviously do it without a GPU. You can just open it in your Jupyter notebook. I heard that you guys have been Jupyter, so I ran it in this also, and it ran fine. It runs fine. GPT you would be using when you are using a training. What is Kaggle? Kaggle, see, this is Kaggle. See, what is Kaggle? It will open my Kaggle. Kaggle is basically an online community or platforms which have many data sets, which organizing many competitions, uh, hackathons, long time competitions like 3 months, 15 days, a few years. So if you are moving into the intermediate stage of machine learning or data science, then Kaggle is a very good place for you to roam around. But for beginners, I would not suggest directly entering in a Kaggle competition because it may be a bit messy for you. But you can always find data sets from the Kaggle. Like this data set I have used, this shopping one. This I have also downloaded from the Kaggle. So yeah, it's a very useful thing. Is ML artificial intelligence? No, there are overlapping between AI and ML, but those are not the same thing. There are many differences. Shivam sir was talking about a thing called MLP. NLP, yeah. NLP is natural language processing. NLP is a subtopic of machine learning, and basically it deals with everything that is associated with your speaking, your language, like the language I am saying. It includes the main problem statements are like sentiment analysis. If there is a sentence, you can classify it in a happy sentence or a neutral or a sad one just by mm, providing some algorithm and doing some training. So NLP covers the audio, the voice signals, the text paragraph, the graph also, and also other anything where there is language not related to just English. The translation that Google does, the Hindi to Bangla, the English to Hindi, or any other language. These use the NLP. Another how to learn the mathematical derivation in the math. Yeah. That is a very good question. Like we can see the implementation easily in 15 to 20 minutes. It is easy to just copy the code and run it. Like the notebook I have provided, it is very easy for you to run. But to understand the mathematics behind those algorithm, you have to just understand the working of that. Like if this in this section, if you want to understand how a hierarchical clustering, how this grouping takes place, then the answer is the same one. Google it. Google what is agglomerative hierarchical cluster. Read some articles. And also, if you want to know about these things, see, just you can read this. This gives a brief introduction about the function, method, or the parameters. We'll try to cover a small hands-on if people want. Yeah, sure. Deep learning. How much mathematics knowledge is needed for all this? Not that much. Nothing like that. You just need to have the basic linear algebra and a bit of stats. Is competitive coding needed for ML? No. These are completely different domains. Competitive coding is something different. Machine learning is something completely entirely. How to get an internship in this field? Projects, experience, and connections. Simply go in this order. First, learn the algorithm, do some projects, have some experience, and then connect someone or apply for directly for internships. Are there any dedicated source for the math part? No, unfortunately, there is not a dedicated source, but it can be a good initiative if you could understand it and explain it, because the explanation part is a bit tricky in mathematics. Do companies come for machine learning? See, yeah, the machine learning and I can't think of a complete designation, but yeah, ML engineer is one of the thing, and ML ops machine learning. It is recent, like we have seen the DevOps developer. the software developers. But in this thing, a new designation have been arriving these days, MLOps, and there is a vast scope in this. These are responsible for creating end-to-end ML projects, applications, pipelines. So yeah, companies do hire for this. Also, data science is a good research field or research domain, and data analyst. Data analyst also covers some of machine learning. Can I find anything good on Coursera? You can find something good on Coursera, but I don't prefer Coursera for learning. I would prefer Coursera for certifications. Like it would certify that you know this, but it would not make you understand this. Because in my personal opinion, Coursera tutorials are not that much um, easy to understand. What is AWS ML? AWS and ML are different things. Machine learning is machine learning, and AWS is Amazon Web Services. Like there are many web services. Google provide it, Amazon provide it, Microsoft provide it. So AWS is Amazon's web services. They provide computation power, the cloud storage, and other services. They charge a price. But is ML good for job and research? Both. In my opinion, both. It is also good for job. It is one of the best for research also. How do I find people who are related to this field? By working in online communities. Like Kaggle can be one options. LinkedIn also a good option. Just search machine learning in the search box and find people that are associated to it. Find any groups or that kind of communities. Like we have Gaurav Sen for competitive coding. Yeah, in competitive coding, we have Gaurav Sen, and Vikramaditya, and many of them. In machine learning, I would recommend a person called Krish Nayak. See this, uh, Krish Nayak. I have actually learned a lot from him. He has his own YouTube channel, and he makes really good and explanatory videos. See, this guy. This is Krishna. Also, can provide you a bit of some YouTube channels where you can provide good machine learning materials, like also for JOS, Stammers, in DataQuest, StatQuest, sorry, StatQuest with JOS Stammer. This is also a good platform for understanding algorithms. Is Python the only language I wouldn't see? Uh, you cannot do much in machine learning by using C. Python would be the easiest one for you, but if you are allergic to Python, you can use R, Ruby. Sorry, not Ruby, R. Can I get a job in ML after college or anything extra needed? Neural network coding, same process. Yeah, neural network can be a cherry to the cake. I saw a video of 3B1B. I don't know what is 3B1B, but anything extra, yeah, you need project, you need experiences, you need some good projects. Like if you have something novel or new in your mind, you can implement it. Okay, I guess,
Yes, that was all.
yeah.
Guys were
So,
facing problems while seeing the stream, I guess. I opened another meet and streamed this session over there.
oh, perfect, perfect. Also, it's like I don't think there is much time for you to continue.
Yeah, I'll do it
Apologies
for
for that.
you.
I'd request you to please continue your explanation or your thing on the machine learning in the tomorrow session, because I don't think I would
Yeah,
be
yeah,
much
we have
involved.
discussed that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so from 10 a.m. tomorrow then?
what time would be more comfortable for you?
I mean, like Shivam would be taking a session tomorrow also as well, right?
Yeah.
Like just ask Shivam, I guess, or whatever time these guys were told. Keep that.
We had the session scheduled at 10 a.m. only for both days.
Then let's keep it at 10 only.
Okay. Then. Okay. Okay.
Okay, Virup, thank you for organizing this session. Thank you for
Pleasure to
inviting.
have you guys. Pleasure to have you guys.
And also, thank you the participants for interacting that much. And if you do have any queries, you are free to connect me anywhere, like on Discord, LinkedIn. And also, what I have learned, I would like to share it on GitHub so you can view my GitHub repository. I have provided one in uh, the notebook. Please go through the notebook. And it was really good to interact with you guys.
You can just give your GitHub link on the announcements, I guess. They can just take a look.
Okay, sure. I'll provide.